Let's watch this really quick. 13 minutes. I do want to understand more about Final Fantasy netcode and stuff like that in general.
Everyone, MrHappy here, and today I'm going to be talking about a topic that I thought I had buried since the A Realm Reborn days, Final Fantasy XIV netcode. With the recent addition of the Fall Guys event, many people have come to notice some oddities in how the game decides whether or not you were actually
Yeah, this
hit
is
by an
interesting that
attack,
Fall Guys
or
sort
in
of brought this
case,
back
an
into the
obstacle.
fold.
This has led to many questioning the game's netcode itself, blaming it on the constant case of "I was definitely out of that" side swipes they've taken across the various maps. Funnily enough, this topic hasn't really been that popular since...
Yeah, I get it, though. Like, I get where people were coming from, where they're like, oh, well, if I play in an area where I've got high ping or something, this allows me to sort of play like everyone else. Yeah. Like that, Carbuncle. But it is, but, you know, on paper, it is cheating. On paper, it is cheating. What Cloud said is actually the correct explanation. So yeah, and Zeno did a video about it once. It's just super poorly implemented on a Square's part that the animation starts again after the server receives the info. Okay. Oh, Cloud, you said so the animation lock reduction is actually due to 14 being set up to restart animation lock duration after response from the server. Alexander just pretends to be the server to remove the component. Okay. So we're all in agreement it's cheating then, yeah?
FF14's relaunch with A Realm Reborn a decade ago. It's had bits and pieces during Heavensward Stormblood. It really depends on the kind of content that's out at the time, but it was huge at the start of Realm Reborn for the first, like, half a year or so. When Final Fantasy XIV came out, this was a frequent criticism, especially on Titan Hard Mode, where landslides and the notoriously fast weight of the land AoEs claimed many a young player's dreams of getting there clear. Back
Yeah,
in
you couldn't res on this,
patch
could you?
2.0, the game actually did have a major netcode problem. You see, in their haste to get the game live to the player base, I don't remember if it was their hardware or their optimization of said hardware that was lacking, but it was so bad that the game had a built-in 300 ms latency before factoring in whatever your actual ping was.
Wow.
So if you had 200 ms ping on top of that, you basically needed to react to things about half a second faster than the game intended you to. Basically memorize every fight and move out of attacks.
Very nice that they show Twintania for this one as well, in terms of how quickly you have to react. And they're like, oh, by the way, here's Twintania. Enjoy the dive bombs when you have to react 0.5 seconds quicker than wherever you think it might be. That's mental. It's doable. I think it's very doable based on the fact that Final Fantasy is very scripted in the fight design. So you always know how it's going to go, but that's pretty rough, man.
In advance. I still don't know how one of my pals who is raiding from like an army base with 500 ms, I don't know how he did coil, but he did, and that just goes to show you it was possible, but that doesn't mean it was
He probably
good.
just got res.
This issue was actually, I'm going to put this in quotes, resolved back in 2.1 when the game's innate latency was brought to, at least in the dev team's words at the time, to industry standard. This reduced the innate latency to 100 ms, and people quickly learned that the 200 ms difference wasn't really the only reason they couldn't dodge Way to the Land. No, they just didn't dodge it in the first place. Anyway, that's the last known instance of them reporting on whatever the innate latency is. We have no idea if this has improved at all. There's not really much else to say. We just have to assume for the point of the video that that's what's there. There's a built-in 100 ms latency. That being said, since patch 2.1, we've still had that report of, but I wasn't in that upon people taking deaths they felt were undeserved. This has frequently led back to the complaint about the netcode being bad, but unfortunately, in this particular case, that's not really the true culprit behind things. Don't get me wrong, Final Fantasy XIV should be looking to improve aspects like netcode and keep them up to date in whatever way possible. They have shortcomings in places like the delay between skills. You know how everyone's like, oh, put 2 OGCDs between a GCD for this opener and that. And for half the people, depending on what instance you're even in the game, sometimes the ability to do that can just change. And it can be really hard to play jobs optimally, even when you have low ping. There's even something more actively netcode related that I'm actually going to talk about later in this video that does have to do with the Fall Guys event, so we'll get to that then. And also, from what more technical people have told me, I didn't know this, so this is secondhand. Please feel free to just say this is wrong, because I don't know anything.
I love that as a content creator when you're just like, Oh god, I know I'm gonna get chewed out in the comments for this if I don't get this absolutely right, and they're gonna tell me if I don't get this right. But that's very interesting that in certain instances you just can't do what you are able to do in different instances. Like, FF is kind of scuffed, but I'll be honest, I still enjoy the combat of this game.
Game has a somewhat predictive movement feature where the game somewhat calculates your movements before they happen to help mitigate that innate latency. From what I'm told, it's the reason why clips like this can happen to me at a super low latency in the first place. Like, I'm in that. I'm dead. But apparently people have told me that the game thinks I'm out of it because I was moving out of it and my latency was so low that it like superseded the 100 ms. I don't know. I'm dead.
Wait, what? So the game is like, is it like it's predicted that he was gonna keep moving or some shit because he was moving out of it? I've definitely had moments, specifically on Ifrit, when we were doing Ifrit, where I've moved, you know when he fills the whole room with fire on the ground and you have to move into the safe spots? I've definitely been in the fire spot and not been hit. And it's like, huh. Like, I should have been hit there.
To help mitigate that innate latency. From what I'm told, it's the reason why clips like this can happen to me at a super low latency in the first place. Like,
Yeah, he's just fully in that. What a shit game. You know, yep, Clock, this is going to be going up on YouTube. I'm not even going to respond to that, Chief. I'm just going to let the YouTube comments sort you out.
In that. I'm dead. But apparently people have told me that the game thinks I'm out of it because I was moving out of it and my latency was so low that it like superseded
that's
the 100
pretty...
ms. I don't know. I got this whole huge written explanation about how people didn't understand how it worked, and that was essentially the TLDR of it. But yeah, I guess that's there. So if that's not true, feel free to tell me, because that's just what I got an essay about.
I've sort of noticed those little things.
But
I'm
the
like, I should be
complaint
dead.
that most people should actually be levying when it comes to stuff like Fall Guys is how the game's mechanics are communicated to the player. There's a misconception, a very reasonable one I might add, that when an animation for an attack goes off, that's when the attack actually hits. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. Final Fantasy XIV more consistently bases whether or not you've been hit by something solely based on the cast bar of a skill finishing. If it doesn't have a cast, then just like the moment the game decides to use that skill for like instant hit abilities.
Okay.
So, okay, let's say a monster or boss or whatever starts casting a skill. You see
By the way, this is actually a very, very helpful video to understanding like more of how this stuff works, because I think knowing the sort of theory behind it will actually help improve my ability to play. If I can, you know, understand how the game is going to operate, then maybe I can play around that. So, yeah, this is good.
whatever, starts casting a skill. You see a cast bar and, you know, it finishes and the attack goes off. If you are in the line of fire when that cast bar finishes, 95% of the time, that means the game has determined you were hit by it. However, the animation may take several full seconds to resolve, so the game's not going to communicate that you got hit by it until the animation goes off. Even though the server decided you were dead 2 or 3 seconds prior.
Wait, how does he get hit by that? Hold on.
So the game's not going to communicate that you got hit by
Is it here?
it until the animation
Yeah.
goes off.
So the animation, so he got hit by this one,
The
right?
animation may take several full seconds to resolve, so the game's not going to communicate that you got hit by it until the animation goes off. Even though the server decided you were dead 2 or 3 seconds prior, it's going to wait until the animation would have collided with the location that it determined you were in at the time of failing the mechanic. The delay in communicating to the player is really where the problem lies.
Yeah.
And it's funny to...
Yeah, because that's the thing, right? Is like, you are dead. And this is something that can actually happen in WoW sometimes, where you heal someone, maybe even potentially yourself, but you can heal someone, but there can be a very small delay with your heal cast finishing and the actual heal effect hitting the player. Meanwhile, some incoming damage hits them, and there's that overlap between, I guess there's a sequence between heals and damage being taken at that time. And that can happen in WoW, but it's one of those things where I haven't noticed that in probably like a year. You know what I mean? Like the last time that was a thing was like a year ago. Oh, I've just realized King Thordan. Yo, okay, I can't look too much at this one because we just killed King Thordan yesterday for the MSQ. So guys, close your eyes, okay? No spoilers, no spoilers. All right, nah, that's fine. That's fine. I'm looking forward to this fight. I don't even know what it's gonna look like, but this is fine. Just dodge those guys on the side of the room. Okay, that's all I've got from that. So it can happen sometimes with WoW where that is a thing. But in Final Fantasy, it's constantly happening, right? So you sort of learn to adjust that. Where the game, yeah, this is a good point. The game is just communicating to you on a delay that you're dead or you got hit, and so you sort of get frustrated because you're like, well, I wasn't in that. Why did I get hit? It's like, you know, at the point at which the sort of the thing happened, you were in it, but then a few seconds had passed. It's kind of like if you think of Formula One. It's kind of like when a driver sort of makes an illegal move and overtakes another driver, and they should, in theory, have to give the place back, but so long has passed because the FIA are so shit at figuring out that that driver did an illegal move, that the time in which it takes for them to figure out that they need to give the place back, it's already too late, and they can't do that now, so they just have to slap him with a 5-second penalty. Send my regards.
To me, because the easiest solution to that is to make certain attacks just less grandeur. You know, Final Fantasy as a franchise loves its wacky, crazy, over-the-top animations for everything. That's true in 14 as well. I'm sure a lot of us appreciate it when we just look at something and I'm like, oh my god, that thing looks crazy. But in an MMO, that's kind of off-putting to be blasted by something you quote-unquote failed to dodge server side, but were super out of client side. Even with this perfectly reasonable explanation that I'm sure some of you get and you go, oh, okay, that makes sense. That doesn't mean you feel better about it. It doesn't change the fact that it feels terrible on the receiving end of attacks that you weren't in visually. And if you're newer to the game, what are you just going to expect the person to know that or to have to explain this to them?
I'm sorry, but if I have to watch him get slammed into this shit in the ground, like, if I have to watch him get slammed into this wall one more time, I'm going to lose my mind, okay? Every time I'm like, he dodges this one, right? He dodges this one, right? Surely he's going to dodge this one. And I know it's the same clip being replayed, but you know when you watch a movie and the character's going to die and you like know the character dies in the movie every single time, but you watch it back and you think maybe they won't die this time. Maybe something will happen in the movie where they'll still be alive. That's what this is. Yeah, the definition of insanity. I was watching him like, he's going to dodge. He's going to dodge. But yeah, previously you couldn't see the cast bars in the enemy list, but this is at least you can see very clearly he's standing in it when the cast bar finishes. Yeah, cool. Yeah, that at least helps. You get used to it. Yeah, you get used to it for sure. It's something that's had to be because I had this explained to me about the whole idea of like, okay, you need to dodge the telegraphing, not the animation. You can be in the animation, which goes sort of against the logical thinking. You'd be like, no, I need to dodge the animation. That's like, you telegraph something like, this is gonna happen, so watch out now, because afterwards, then it's gonna happen, right? That's a logical way of sort of fight design and communicating that to the player is watch the animation, the actual sword swing. That's the thing you care about. The boss charging up going, I'm going to swing my sword. You don't give a shit about that. It's when you go, I'm swinging it. That's when you should care. So it is weird, but at least for me, I got to watch my friends play this game, and I also had it explained to me a lot before I started playing this game. So it wasn't as big of a deal, me getting used to it. In fact, I anticipated it, like, oh, okay, I already came into this game thinking, okay, animation is fine, dodge the telegraphing. If you're a new player, you'd probably lose your mind. I would imagine so. That's an interesting question, actually. I need to find out from other people that have tried the game if that, because some people just go, oh, I don't like Final Fantasy, the combat's bad. And I wonder if that's what they mean, is this scenario. Yeah.
Every single time there's a new person? No, it's confusing. So I'm not like saying it's an excuse.
It being your first MMO? It didn't feel weird at all to just dodge the big danger puddle and not the animation. Maybe because it's your first MMO, it's fine. But if you go play other video game, like if you go play any other video game, it's dodge the animation. So I don't know. Fair enough for you, but I'll be honest, that's not the normal order of things in pretty much any video game. You have to accept that this is weird, but it's still, you can still play around it and you can still enjoy the combat, but this is weird.
I'm just explaining how it works and saying that's not really so much a netcode thing as much as it is they don't have really quick and snappy animations, because the game is saying, hey, in the moment we decided this attack went off, that is when you were in it, you got hit by it. That makes total sense. It's just the extra 2 seconds to actually
because the animation has to sort of go through.
Confusing. And Fall Guys is one of the most egregious examples of this. There's so many obstacles and mechanics and AoEs going off all the time that the less proper visual tells just don't really end up well. And honestly, it's less clear than some endgame content is. You can't see the cast bars, animations are quick and sudden, and you're actively rushing against tons of other players. So when you get hit by something, you're not sitting there going, well, on the server side, I think I was in that, but no, you're just like, come on, I didn't deserve that. You're going
when you're racing people like this and you can see other people next to you that they didn't get hit, that's when you have a comparison, right? Whereas when you're maybe in a fight where you are the only person behind, I don't know. When you're racing people, you can be like, well, if I got hit, then he should have gotten hit.
For latency, pings, ISPs, all that stuff, who may not be having the same issues as you or may have mastered their own. So there's actually like a skill diff here, but it's in the weirdest way possible. Now that's for the parts that don't really have that much to do with the netcode, but netcode communicating to the player is actually still a thing you need to consider. And there's another part of the Fall Guys collaboration that absolutely you can blame on netcode. With the attacks not matching up to deaths, that's contrasting design decisions between how a player's death is communicated server side versus how it's visually shown inaccurately. The other half is how players communicate their position to each other.
Yeah,
and that is definitely something that they should look at. Many of you have either experienced or seen a clip of someone making it to the crown first, but a person behind them...
Dude, it's so funny, by the way. I'm seeing so many comments in chat that's like, yeah, guys, the netcode issue is fine. Like, I swear you can present Final Fantasy players with anything, and they'll, like, manage to sort of mental gymnastics contort themselves into, like, this is good, actually. It's like you could tell a Final Fantasy player, we're gonna kick you in the nuts as hard as possible, and they'll contort themselves into a way where they actually feel like that's justified and that they enjoy it. You know what I mean? Same can be said about WoW players? No. WoW players will tell you this is dog shit trash. Do you want me to go on WoW Twitter right now? Bro, I can go on WoW Twitter right now. They always say this is dog shit trash. In fact, problem with WoW players is that they say everything's dog shit trash even when it's not. Yeah, you haven't looked at enough WoW Twitter, my friend, if you think WoW players are the same. WoW players will dog on their game constantly. Final Fantasy players are like, well, see, getting kicked in the nuts, it's actually a learning experience. It teaches me what true pain can feel like. So I actually enjoy getting kicked in the nuts because, well, before getting kicked in the nuts, I didn't truly have an experience of getting kicked in the nuts. So I just thought that's what life was, where you get kicked in the nuts. And it's like the gymnastics, man. You think it's the other way around? It is absolutely not the other way around. I promise you that. It is absolutely not.
Claiming the victory.
WoW players also had copium for Shadowlands up until they finally broke down during the end. There was no copium for Shadowlands. That was pretty instantly. Everyone was like, this is not great. Pretty quick. Pretty quick, people understood that Shadowlands was not a good one. I don't know where you guys have gotten your information from, but nah. Shadowlands was not well received.
Victory instead. This has to do with how a player's position is registered server side versus how it's communicated to other players client side. On your client, you make an action like walking forward, it gets sent to the server registers it based on latency before sending that information to other players' clients.
Yeah, that's kind of wild.
Someone on your client who is actually a bit behind you is either running dead even with you or even potentially ahead of you, depending on the distance. But on their screen, you are lagging behind them in the same manner. The truth is that both of you are probably neck and neck, and then it's going to come down to a photo finish on who gets the crown. This is the kind of thing that Netcode can absolutely be blamed for, because this...
See, I don't really mind. Even if it looks like the person's behind me, but they still beat me, I will, knowing what I know, I would just go, oh, okay, well, they must have been in front of me, and the game just hasn't communicated that. In which case, it's not the end of the world, right? But I can see why some people would be like, oh, that's kind of frustrating, you know? Yeah. Haven't you seen content creators that have been complaining all month? Authors every tweet, FF14 badge. Yeah, I'm just talking about my own stream. Like, we're watching this video and, like, everyone's like, oh, no, this is fine. This is actually good design or whatever, you know? But yeah, no fucking way. Whenever you have a problem, they just say get good. Attack indicators are red on the red floor, and even world first guilds are using the Incubug potion for visual clarity. They call them out for being cheaters and say get good. Wait, what? So in that situation, where's anyone saying WoW is, like, where's the good bit? That all sounds pretty negative to me. Good morning, Ray. And what up, Solomance? Good morning, good morning. Arthurs, is anyone like that? Yeah, probably true. Arthurs is pretty funny, man. Yeah, but that's interesting with the fact that they actually, like, I guess, the infrastructure of how they designed the game, where they designed it with the sort of latency.
This failure in communication is entirely about accurately
Nagura played
player
this?
positions against one another. And in something like Fall Guys, that matters a lot. Like, yeah, it's good to know that the server side position is correct, that 14's not miscommunicating that part of it, but if they need to make an improvement on anything, this should be a top priority. And honestly, it's been a huge problem from casual to hardcore for, well, pretty much ever. Ever had an issue with a tether not being picked up, even though they're standing right between each other, even if they're just wiggling a bit?
Oh, yeah, I've had that with, when I did coils with Phoenix. We have to swap the debuff between two players, and we would swap, and if both of us moved at the same time, then it, like, wouldn't register, you know? Yeah. Yeah, Galen, I think you need to chill out, buddy. I'm literally reading the comments in my own chat and saying, like, I'm commenting on my own chat, but yeah, relax, dude. It's not that deep. It's not that deep. So yeah, that's something that has happened to me as well, actually. Nagura did the first tier of the Endwalker raid on release. First tier of the Endwalker raid on release, if I remember correctly. Oh, yeah, she did, didn't she? That was when Liquid and everyone came over, huh? She did do that. Okay, interesting. I assume she's like stopped playing completely, or is she taking a break, or what?
You pass a debuff through someone even though you didn't actually touch them, but then on the next pull, you both pass right through each other and somehow it doesn't passes. Ever been ahead of someone who has a spread AoE? You're not in each other's AoEs, but you both still get killed? Heck, have you ever had one where somehow only one person gets killed by an instant kill spread AoE? All of that are different cases of the net.
How does that make sense? How does only one person get killed in that situation then?
These often occur because players are attempting to make decisions based on what their client is showing them, which isn't accurate enough in these small moments. At the end of the day, Fall Guys is just showing more people something that those of us who have played for a very long time, especially endgame raiders, have kind of just had to get used to. We make much more careful and deliberate decisions because we've had years and years of experience in these style of things. We know when we can do dumb things like actually go directly through the animation for an AoE because we're so used to our own server side position and our latency that we can make that judgment call. Whereas other people who are just trying to play the game visually for what it's showing them aren't able to do that. So there's all sorts of just, they're problems. You know, I guess at the end of the day, I don't want to diminish that these are things that Final Fantasy XIV could do better. I just felt the compulsion to explain exactly what is happening to people so that...
Yeah, it's good to understand.
Feedback on these kind of...
do you guys have a picture of Nagura's UI? You say it was really bad. Can I see it? I'd be interested.
Things that we know fully what it is we're trying to say and what we're trying to get across. Could animations be snappier so that way there's less confusion about this? Absolutely. Could they make improvements, at least I'd like to assume, to the way that player position is communicated against one another? Absolutely. I have to believe that those things are possible. Not necessarily easy, especially given that the game, you know.
Picture the stereotypical WoW Raider UI. So pretty much nothing present, and then you just have some cooldown stuff in the middle, like right here, and then basically nothing else on screen. That's pretty much the stereotypical WoW Raider UI. But isn't that pretty good? Because you have very, very limited, sort of, you don't have much clutter on screen.
It was kind of put together with duct tape and a hope and a dream way back in 2013 when they had to redo the whole thing. But you have to believe that it's doable and it's possible. I almost wonder if the cloud servers are going to help with anything like this at all. I don't know how the server side versus client side communication is going to work, and I'm very interested to find out when we get the data center test in the coming week. But what else is there to say at this point? We just need to be vocal about it, to speak about it, and hopefully it's something that's taken a little bit more seriously. We have actually seen these types of communications improved in the past. You know, animations like, I guess, like Monk Buff going off, or like Grease Lightning when they had that, or I guess a better example is procs for Black Mage and the actual registration of stuff like
I don't know any of these things.
Ice. You know, those used to be based on the animation for Fire and Ice. So if you had a second left on Astral Fire and you shot a fireball, you had to wait till the fireball actually hit in order, sorry, my phone went off. The fireball actually hit before you would get the Astral Fire buff. Even though the server already knew you had sent it, it was waiting for the animation to communicate it to you. So you could lose Astral Fire even though you finished the cast on time, which goes
that's rough. Is that like I
I
assume Astral Fire must be some kind of like dot that then when you use that ability, it's going to refresh that dot uptime or something, and you just completely lose it? Oh, that's rough.
Should know better. They have resolved that where now as soon as the cast finishes, it registers.
Okay, that's good.
The fireball works better for procs.
So could they maybe do this stuff on a case-by-case basis where they can have certain things that they can reduce the latency for and other things they just leave as is, and they do it on a case-by-case basis? Could that be something that occurs? Because then it's also less development time as well. Because if the general game, like if people are generally happy with how the game works, then don't change everything drastically, right?
Absolutely improve that level of communication. It just may not make sense to do it in all places in their eyes, but I think they could still do a better job than they're currently doing now, and it's worth having a discussion about. Anyway, just
I think it's worth a discussion. I think that's cool.
Just to add my part to the mix as someone with years and years of experience in this.
Thank you, MrHappy.
And all of its little quirks and all that stuff. So to continue the discussion in the comment section below, really curious to see what people will have to say about what they have in this video, and if they have anything to add. There's almost certainly things that even I don't know about it because I don't really get too deep into things. I usually catch discussions about the stuff that goes really, really deep into how Final Fantasy XIV's netcode works. So I'm very curious to read my own comment section on this video because I think there's probably going to be some fun facts in there that I didn't know.
Dope. Thank you for the video, MrHappy. We give it a like. I already shared it in the chat. Bada bing, bada bing. Yeah, it's a cool video. It's nice to understand things a little bit more.